So you're asking about the forecast of the market and the downturn. Look, I mean, we knew that a correction needed to be placed, it needed to happen. As I just explained. But a correction's a correction. A downturn, we needed a little bit of that correction. We needed a little bit of a downturn. Did we see the full-on recession as it turned out? Absolutely not. We kind of got led down the rabbit hole all along the way that, it's not going to be that bad. This is going to happen. That's not going to happen. And sure as crap, man, everything just started happening and it kept going. And probably, I mean, hindsight being 2020, what we should have done or could have done to preserve equity, to preserve our own personal capital, is just shut operations down earlier. We had a building that we were paying a lot of rent on, and we had really no movement of anything taking place. We had staff, we had an engineer, we had people working for us that we continued to pay for a couple of years as we chased this market down the rabbit hole. Finally, by 2000 and probably late 2007, I'm like, man, we got to pull the plug on this. We're going to have to just put this thing on ice and figure out what's going to happen and let this thing kind of run out. And foreclosures had already started to take place, and you're starting to see more and more inventory being dumped onto the market, and this thing was well on the way to being a major housing crisis. So when did I first feel the real extent of the hit? What's interesting is they always talk about you should have some savings, right? You should have some resources. Well, 3 months savings, 6 months savings, you hear different things all the time. I can tell you that based on our lifestyle as to what it had grown to and where we were at, we had 3 years worth of cash on hand when this thing started, in cash in the bank. And I told Stacy, I said, you know what? I said, this feels really good because no matter what happens, we can weather any storm. We can weather any storm. We got the cash. So as the acquisitions stopped and all that, we had that shored up. Well, we kept operations going longer than we should have. That obviously depleted some cash. Our lifestyle didn't really change because, again, we're chasing this thing down the rabbit hole. Where it really hit for me was even after we took, and just to give you an example of how fast this thing ratcheted up, we had bought our house at the time. We did a lease purchase option on the deal because when we bought the house that we were in, I was working with Conley, had little resources, and just kind of the art of the deal. It made the right deal. These people needed to get out of their house. It needed work. This made sense. We knew we could get the down and eventually just buy it, and so it all worked out. That house that we paid $450 for, we put about $250,000-$300,000 of cash into remodeling it. As soon as I saw the market going down, it was about 2006, we were able to go and basically refinance the house or look at different options. I looked at doing a home equity line of credit with it, interest only, and said, man, I need to shore up cash. So we did that. They came out and appraised the house. And in that short of a time, our house had gone from basically $500,000, we had value added it, to the appraisal coming back at $1.3 million. So I maxed out the loan on a house that was basically almost paid for just to shore up some additional cash. Well, as time went on and we made other mistakes like that, cars that were paid for, I mean, we were living a life to where, we had Escalades with 24-inch wheels on it and just roll. I mean, we were living like a professional athlete lifestyle at the time with big drop-down TVs and satellite TV for the kids, you name it, Mercedes in the garage, just everything. You want to go buy a new car, you just go buy a new car. Pay cash, I want that one. That's what I want. And it was a crazy life, and also looking at the idea of selling a vehicle that you might be able to get $60,000 or $70,000 for to raise additional cash, and buy something else because you got great credit and you can finance it and have zero interest loans because the market was going bad. I'll tell you, for me, when it really, really hit was when I'm running out of cash, like down to my last 6 months worth of money. My run rate was down to 6 months, and we had already made adjustments and changes, and this market wasn't getting any better. Not only were we looking at the land side of all that value, but we got a second hit. The second wave that hit. The second wave that hit was the money that you were squirreling away, that you're putting into the markets in hopes that you're going to build your retirement. You're going to do all these different things. You're trying to be smart with it and diversify. All those types of things that we were doing, the second wave, it was like it came down and hit us a second time. All of a sudden, account values that had 100% worth of value were dropped and reduced down to maybe 40 cents on the dollar. So that money's literally gone at the same time when you thought that maybe it would be your backup. You hoped that it would be there. You were hoping that it was going to grow. All these strategies, and it's like, okay, I got 6 months worth of resources left, and this thing is not getting any better. So after you get to that realization, and you're holed up in your home, and things are starting to get dark. And what I mean by dark is you're starting to make decisions on how you're going to pay for things, what you're going to pay for. Your family becomes the most important thing. And, defaults start to take place. You start to pick and choose what you're not going to pay, when you're not going to pay it. And it really then, honestly, it snowballs on you. And meanwhile, you're trying to figure out, look, how is this market changing? How can I capitalize on it? The little bit of money that I had left, I sunk into a new concept and a new idea to get rolling. And I thought, okay, I have this real estate license. I've never really used it, since the very early days as a broker, but I mean, there's got to be something I can do, and maybe homes and flipping homes. And, I got some guys, and we started to make a few acquisitions. One of my friends was a guy that was buying foreclosures at the courthouse steps. And, we started to look at different avenues and different ways to get into it, but as it kept coming down and getting closer and closer around us, it finally hit me when our house was going to be foreclosed on and going to auction. And that became a really, really dark time, because as I'm trying to reinvent myself, as I'm trying to scramble, as I'm trying to figure out a new way, a new alternative, this stuff's all happening, and the pressure was really building up. So ultimately, what happened was, we had our house go back to the lender. I thought that we might get to stay in it. Like, a lot of people were starting to get to stay where they could stay in there for 6 months, maybe even a year. We weren't on the fortunate end of that. Ours actually sold at auction. A friend of mine basically had said, hey, look, let me know when the house is going to go to auction, because, if you need it, I'll give you the cash, or just buy it back at the auction. The day that the house went to auction, I didn't really know. I missed the mark on it, and it sold at auction for $1 over what the minimum was on it. And that minimum that was put on it was $420,000. From $1.3 million to 400 and basically $20,000. The dude buys it for $1. We're out of the house. We got the people knocking on the door saying, you got to get out of here. We had things kind of set up and prepared, so ultimately we ended up moving. We moved into a rental house, probably 15 miles away, into a little less expensive area, and kind of started to figure out, okay, what do we do next? What's the next step? And as we did that, and mind you, there was a period of time, and this is a really dark time, where as I'm trying to figure out what I'm going to be doing next as part of those next steps, there was a small moment of time that we literally were out of money and without a house and homeless. During that time, as we're losing the house, we had repo guys coming back and asking. Cars were originally cash. decided we maybe buy new cars, just have payments on them, because we needed the cash out of the original cars because they had so much value. And it just kept this cycle of going, and we can't make the payments. And literally, I remember, having the repo guy call the house, and they're trying to pick up one of the Mercedes, and I got the phone with the guy. I said, "Hey, look, I don't want you to, if you don't come into the neighborhood, can I just meet you somewhere and I'll just give you the keys?" And he's like, "Yeah, let's go meet at the Home Depot parking lot." And those are humbling experiences as you go through that. We had one sniped on the driveway, and literally we were homeless and completely out of vehicles. We did not have a single car in the driveway. That is a rock bottom moment, my friends, when you get to that point in time in your life. And that's a very humbling experience. And so we quickly had to figure out, okay, what are we going to do to rebuild and regroup? So we started that process, put some money into a software platform to get creative, to try and figure out what the value of these real estate tapes would be, and these things that were being let out onto the market, from the single family home side, and raised a little bit of money, started buying some of these things to do fix and flips. It just, everything that we were doing, I ended up creating a fund that we were looking at to say, okay, this is a great opportunity fund. We're going to go buy these homes at auction. We're going to do a little bit of value add, fix them up, and then we're going to sell them on a future value based on this, put an FHA note. We had everything all set up, and then we had the Dodd-Frank Act come out, and then we would have been predatory lenders, and it just kind of blew all the money that I had raised in capital to do that type of a thing. So it was just one thing after another, and that was my real estate experience. And by 2010, my wife, or my son, who was playing hockey, had an opportunity to go play in Colorado, and my wife said, "You know what? I think this is a great opportunity for him." Meanwhile, she had gone back to work, and at the end of the day, we moved to Colorado.